Today's show is all about the Emotiva TA2 integrated amplifier. Now, it's an integrated amplifier, but it does have an FM tuner built in, so it's really a stereo receiver, but for some reason Emotiva calls it an integrated amp. I'll call it an integrated amp. But anyway, this is one of those amplifiers that is an overachiever. I've said that before about other Emotivas because they usually are. But I think this one, even more so. For example, it's $899. It is a Class AB amplifier that puts 200 watts per channel into 4 ohms, 135 watts a channel into 8 ohms. I can't think of another $900 integrated amp that does that. Oh, and it sounds really good, by the way. Of course it does, but it's extremely powerful for the price, and that it's a Class AB amp. I mean, Class D is becoming more and more common. Class D can sound okay. I'm not saying it can't. But if given a choice, I would usually go for the A because it just sounds more, for lack of a better word, natural to me and to many other people. So I'm happy it's Class AB. I'm happy it's super powerful and it sounds great. But the features are generous. It has bass management, meaning you can use it like you would an AV receiver, but unlike an AV receiver's bass management, which always converts the signal to digital, this one does not. So you can high pass, you can send signals to the speakers over a certain frequency, let's say 100 hertz, and send that to your main speakers, and then everything under 100 hertz to your subwoofer. So it has bass management, which you can turn on or turn off. It's very, very flexible. There's 4 analog inputs. So it has a phono input, moving magnet and moving coil, and I was very impressed with that. A headphone jack on the front. It's 3.5 millimeter. It's a tiny one. I prefer for home use the 6.3 millimeter jacks, but anyway, it's easy to work around. It's just a minor annoyance. But speaking of annoyances, one thing that used to really bug me about Emotiva amplifiers was their bright blue LEDs that were not dimmable. Well, now and for the current generation, they are. You can turn off the LEDs. You can turn off that ring LED around the blue LEDs around the volume control so they don't sear your eyeballs at night. I very much appreciate that. The remote control, that's the one misstep. It's a little plastic remote control. It's fully functional. It does the job, but it doesn't feel great in your hand. Now the knob feel on that volume control knob on the TA1 is actually pretty nice. I wouldn't say it's the best I've felt, but it's good. I mean, the build quality of the amplifier itself is very, very solid. Look inside. Look, I popped the cover to take pictures of the inside. That is a seriously large toroidal transformer for a $900 amplifier. And the heatsink is also pretty big. And take note, there are not 1, but 2 fans there to cool down the heatsink, which I will tell you more about later. So it has a moving coil input. So it has 4 digital inputs, a USB input. Again, not a feature that you find on every integrated amp nowadays. But 2 optical inputs and 1 coaxial input, plus Bluetooth 5, which I did listen to. And you know what? It sounded very listenable, even better than just mere background listening. I listened to it, thought, it sounds good, it sounds fine. There are preamplifier outputs and also obviously since there's bass management, a subwoofer output, an RCA sub out, which I did use, and I used it with a Rel T0 tiny sub, but a really great sounding sub I reviewed recently. I will link to that. And 3 pairs of speakers. The Klipsch RP600 Mark II, high sensitivity speaker, and a speaker that really was such a joy to review, and it's coming up, I should say, and that is the Ohm Micro Walsh. It's a floor standing speaker. It's an omnidirectional speaker. It has a phenomenal sound stage. It images like few other speakers do. And also, I just put it in because it's really hard to drive, the Magnepan LRS Plus. Those are the 3 speakers that I use. Oh, the warranty runs to 3 years. Very, very important. There will be an Audiophiliac viewer system of the day later on in this show. Now, my getting acquainted time with the amp, I was playing a few different speakers, the ones I just mentioned. I felt this is a very powerful sounding amplifier, very neutral sounding amplifier. Not bright, not warm, pretty much straight down the middle. Clean sounding amplifier. Just was as neutral as they get for $899. And I'm looking across the room actually to the Klipsch RP600 Mark IIs and thinking that pairing of the TA2 with the RP600 just lit up my life, man. It was so much fun, so visceral, so exciting, so dynamic, really, really powerful. And you know what? I didn't use the sub most of the time I was listening to the 600 Mark II. I know it's only a fairly small, not huge, stand-mount speaker with a 6.5-inch woofer, but it made enough bass. Definitely on its own, I did not feel I needed to pump up anything to get satisfaction. So, you know, I have a feeling, take a wild guess here, that most of the people that buy the TA2 will listen to it with digital sources, a CD player, not that likely, but possible, and of course computers, whatever, streaming, they will be listening to digital. So I spent a lot of time just listening to it. Most of my experiences listening to the TA2 with its built-in DAC. It sounded great, sounded fine. But I thought, what if I used a better DAC? I know I'm doing air quotes, a better DAC. In this case, the Mytek Liberty II, which is $14.95. So it's like 50% more expensive than the TA2 itself. And you know what? It sounded a lot better. Well, it sounded significantly better with the Liberty doing the decoding. And that made me think that the TA2's analog circuitry as an amplifier, as an integrated amplifier, are really good. Better than you would know if you used it only with its internal DAC. Now, I'm not saying that to put down the internal DAC, just to show you the potential that this amplifier has to sound even better. That's it. I think that's important to point out. Now, I didn't do the same with the analog, with the phono input, because, well, the phono input by itself sounded really good, and I used it only with a moving coil cartridge, a Dynavector XX2, which is a great cartridge on my Technics SL1200G turntable. It was very, very quiet, no background hiss or anything, and it sounded, again, very neutral. Switching over to the Ohm Micro Walsh speakers, these omnidirectional speakers, I played this CD, Wire, that's the name of the band. Their album is called 154. It was recorded, I believe, in 1979. It's considered post-punk. The guitars are really spiky and aggressive and pushed and just, you know, sparks are flying. And the harmonies, the vocal harmonies had sort of a Pink Floyd, they struck me as very Pink Floyd influenced. Now I will do a complete review of the Ohm very, very soon, but since it was sitting here and it is a low sensitivity speaker, 85 dB sensitivity, I wanted to put those 200 watts to use, so I played it pretty darn loud with Wire, and I was digging it. But it was that 3D quality that I was getting from this $899 amp. Really, really exciting. So my next change was to change over to the LRS Plus, sticking with Wire. And the change, the tonal balance change, was dramatic because the Ohm speakers lean towards full and rich and warm, and they have some real body to them. Going over to the LRS Plus thinned out the sound from the lower mid-range down considerably. Definitely a lot. But the LRS Plus is a more transparent speaker than the Ohm. Much more specific, the focusing of the image, but it's seen flatter. Even though it's a dipole speaker, the LRS pushes sound from its front and back equally. That makes it a dipole. but it didn't sound as big and spacious as the Ohm. Now the LRS was more transparent, more vivid, more texture, that sort of thing, superior focus in the image, but less spacious, less dynamic, and a tad hard with this amplifier, the TA2. Now adding the sub, the REL T0, fleshed out the sound of the Maggies a lot. And it just turned everything around and just made me once again appreciate the magic of a Magnepan speaker. Because it is so transparent. There's nothing for that price, $995 a pair, that can touch it in terms of just getting out of the way and giving you that incredible clarity. So that was good. That was really, really interesting. But the Ohm speaker was the one that just took me to another place. And that's why I'm so excited about doing this review. I don't want to keep talking about the Ohm now because the review will come up shortly. But that marriage between the TA2 and the Ohm micro wash was magical. Absolutely impressive. So to really see how much muscle I could get out of this amplifier, I went back to the LRS Plus and played all sorts of music. It didn't even matter at this point. I wanted to just play it loud to see how comfortable it was playing loud. And one thing I noticed right away is that basically, yes, it does play loud with ease, but those fans came on. So when I was changing CDs, I could hear the whoosh of the fans going through the amplifier. Not the noise didn't come out of the speakers, it came out of the amplifier itself. Now I wouldn't say it was loud or particularly obtrusive, but it was definitely audible. So I'm just mentioning that that's what happens. As for the sound of the TA2 driving the Magnepans all by themselves, I did feel it was kind of, I wanted it to be a little warmer. I know the speaker is bass challenged. I wasn't expecting gobs of bass to come out of those skinny little panels, but I wanted more. It wasn't as full as I would have liked. So is it an ideal match for all you people who are saying, well, is this the one? Is this the one to use with the LRS Plus? I would say right now, no, unless you use the LRS Plus with a subwoofer, a well-matched subwoofer, like the REL T0. But you know what? I was so happy with the sound I was getting from the TA2 with the Klipsch RP600 Mark II. It was surprisingly full. It was so kick-ass. Its dynamics were effortless. It played loud, 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 extremely well. I didn't feel, as I said, I didn't feel a need to use the sub, although the sub definitely pumped up the overall impact in the room. It's not a mandatory option. So I popped on this CD, the Persuasion sing The Grateful Dead. Now, the Persuasions, if you don't know, they're an a cappella group. They're just vocalists, male vocalists. And they're singing this music, which is not the music that you would usually associate with an a cappella group to sing Grateful Dead. And they also did the music of Frank Zappa. Fantastic. These two, if you're into Zappa or the Dead and you've never heard the Persuasions do their music, you absolutely should. It's just so beautiful. And by the way, I went to a couple of Persuasions recording sessions because they made some recordings for Chesky Records back in the day. And I got to say, hearing them now over the Klipsch speakers, it just all came rushing back. Yeah, anyway, so I think the TA2 Klipsch combo is definitely 2 thumbs up. If I had a third thumb, I would give it 3 thumbs up. Okay, so now we're going to do, so Steve, what do you really think of the Emotiva BAS-X TA2 integrated amplifier? I think it's really good. I mean, the sound is essentially neutral through most of the speakers I played. It just sounds right. And those features, such a nice selection of features that are really useful. I mean, if you have smaller speakers and a subwoofer, chances are you're really going to appreciate the bass management, how well thought out it is, how easy it is to use, to just dial it in and get what you need. Very, very impressive. And no conversion to digital. I know that that's not important to everybody, but once a signal enters this amplifier in its analog state, it stays analog from input to output. And again, for $899, Class AB, 200 watts a channel into 4 ohms. That is extraordinary. Build quality feels really solid. 3-year warranty, sold direct. Emotiva is a great company. That's it. Now, yeah, if people wanted me to say that this was a great match with the LRS Plus, the Magnepan LRS Plus, I can't go that far. I can't say it was a great match, but I will say that if you intend to use LRS Plus with a subwoofer, then my maybe would become definitely a yes. So that's the workaround. All right, so now, yes, now it is, at last, finally, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. This one comes from Arnold. He lives in Sydney, Australia. Power amp is a Unison Research Triode 25 integrated. Turntable is a MoFi Studio Deck. Speakers are Sonus Faber Concertino. Subwoofer, Kef PSW 2500. CD player is an Arcam CD73. And then there's a Project 2-box S2 with the LPSU power supply, and topping it all off, yep, a topping M50 streamer. Thanks, Arnold. All right, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, when you're watching an individual video, please hit the like button. It's extremely important to the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, and therefore to me. And if you enjoy what I do, please consider joining my Patreon. That is the best way, the absolute best way to support the channel. Even better than the like button, even better than subscribing to the channel. Just consider. That's what I'm suggesting here. The address is on the screen right now for Patreon, and they accept payments in dollars, pounds, and euros. And with that, I can say my work here is at last complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.